in the next step, we need to go more into detail. So we will start working with more things like highlights, shadows, brightening certain stuff. And I'm going to start from brightening eyes. So as you already know, the best technique to work with the lights, of course, is curves. So I'm going to call this eyes. I'm going to choose the brush as well, the same as before. And this time, I'm not going to keep the flow at 5, but more go around 30. And of course, brighten up the curve, like just go up with this to make this brighter. And then invert the layer mask into the black color. And now, you know you're ready to paint. So just paint direct with the position of the eye. So you don't want to paint the upper position over here, but you just want to paint the bottom because that's where the light reflects. If you're going to paint this all around, you might be sure that it will just look fake and it's not going to turn well. You don't want the fake results. Sometimes you can even choose the smaller brush for more special results, but as you can see, I think we did a lot, but it just looks amazing on this image. So the next step will be working with the contrasts, and once again I'm going to work with curves, and I'm going to call one highlights. So one will be work with highlights and the other will be just shadows. So I'm duplicating this. For highlights, of course, will go up, and for shadows will go down. So first thing I want to do, I want to sort of define the shadows and highlights, and there's few things you can do it. One of the thing is, for example, going through select, color range, and by choosing the highlights. Once you drag the range up to maximum and then go with fuzziness a little bit up, you can easily define the highlights. For the natural light images, it might not work that well as you could expect. So the best method for this would be probably image, apply image, and then try to apply the highlights. Of course, the blending we need to change to the multiply as it was, or normal, and layer must be merged. After this, you will have exact definition of the lines on your image, and everywhere where is the white color is the lights, everywhere where is dark is the shadows. So we can easily say there's much more lights than the shadows, which it's quite challenging, but we probably might do something with it. What I would do over here, I would try to make selection over this highlight mask. You can do this once you switch the layer to channels, because in channels, your mask is created if you have selected this. Simply speaking, your mask represents what RGB represents here. So now you want to make the range of the highlights smaller because we already saw that the range is very big. Once you have selection, you want to make the range of this smaller. As you can see, we can even have a look how the mask looks like over here. So we selected this. Just to select this, just press Command, hit on this layer, and that's where the selection goes. What we want to do here, as the range of our highlights is really big, we want to make the less highlights and the darker parts darker. So I'm going to press Command, Option, Shift, and I'm going to hit on this layer. And what should happen, the range of the selection should get smaller. So then I'm going to press the new layer mask on the bottom, as you can see, save selection as channel, so not exactly new layer mask, but we save another selection, and this time the range is much smaller. So we have these two selections, and what I want to do, I want to take selection from this alpha 1, and I want to create another curve adjustment layer with this selection. So I will call this highlights number 1. So you have two kind of highlights at the moment, and we can actually work with two of them. I don't want to use the top one as it is, but what I want to do, for sure, I want to cover the highlights I have on the back here because they are so strong. I don't want to have any more highlights over here. It's enough that what I have on the bottom layer. So I'm trying to paint over manually, try to be careful to not cover too much of the hair, but also you might do this with the soft edged brush because you don't want this to look fake. So this is quite challenging, but it might be done right, and possibly it's easier than it sounds. So I'm just covering around, and let's see if it's going to work. First of all, I'm going to work with this layer. So that's how our histogram looks like, and I'm gonna increase this layer just a little bit. But what I'm really going to increase is this other layer, because here the selection is purely on the body highlights. I might check if I want to use the previous one, but actually the previous one might be even way too strong. And as you can see, the second one works on my highlights just the perfect way. So you can decide if you actually want to use both of these layers. I might actually sort of blend this, or you just want to use the one layer with better selection. There's many ways you can work. There is much more definition you can add doing this, because of course you can change the range of this even more by doing the same tasks that we did before. What I would do on this adjustment layer, I would add a little bit of blur for better results, because it might get a little bit clear, sort of. So I want this effect to be really soft over the image. So I believe this effect will work just perfect on this. So another step will be, of course, our shadows. And for the shadows, once again, we can take the definition from the color range. We can easily go to shadows, this time range down to darks, and try to define them by sliding the fuzziness, even up to 100. It looks all right to me. I think this selection over here comes quite naturally. Or we can do this through apply image and invert, and I'm going to see how these shadows, this selection over here work. And I think it's too strong, so I'm going to go to select color range, and for shadows, indeed, I'm going to choose from the color range. And I'm going nearly up to 100. Let's hit OK. Then what we're going to do, once again, maybe we could just blur this out just a little bit, maybe not even 50, but like 30 pixels of blur. And if you wonder how I'm checking out how the layer is, I'm just pressing Alt or Option and clicking on this. And then let's drag it down a little bit. And now you must say that our image is absolutely amazing. It has this deep, beautiful contrast. I'm shocked it comes that nicely. But one thing, we changed the saturation value. So at the end, you might change the blending mode to luminosity on the layers where you are working with the lights. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to press Shift, select them all, press Command or Control and G, and I'm going to call this contrasts, all together with the eyes. As you can see, the eyes also got a little bit darker, I believe, over here. Let's see. Or they're not too bad, but if it's not enough for you, you can always increase the value a little bit. But just make sure you're not going to overdo the eyes, because there is nothing worse than the eyes that are too bright.